The second point in this excerpt is all about reconnecting with that opening phrase of the etude through style and musical character. Specifically, the light, detached staccato eighth notes through interpretation and technique. Now, letter C is no different, but it does start with a soft, slightly accented half note. Now, I've said this before, but I highly recommend you follow this advice. Start with your ultimate tempo, and from there, figure out how many strokes are necessary for it to sound natural and sustained. For me, as I bring the tempo up to 118 beats per minute, I like to play 5 notes on beat 1 and only 4 notes on beat 2. That, in conjunction with raising my mallet ever so slightly to stay in the yarn, really helps me mask the articulation as I get softer and make it really, really smooth. And hopefully that contrasts the staccato eighth notes coming up afterwards. Here's what that sounds like in context. Once I've established that baseline of diminuendo and light staccato eighth notes, I just carry it for the whole measure. The next measure starts a crescendo, but I'd like to encourage all of us not to crescendo too quickly. We have quite a bit of time to get there. So the next bar, we can start the crescendo, but when we get to the F sharp, I want to encourage all of us to stay light in our touch to make sure that it is very resonant and smooth. But then, articulate the E, F sharp, and G sharp coming out of the roll. That's the most important part of the phrase. Roll, digga-da, very clear, but then continue the crescendo all the way until the forte piano, which is the C sharp. Here's what that looks like and sounds like in context under tempo. Now that I've finally arrived at that forte piano, I can let the resonance of that note really, really settle, and all of the material that follows, I really want to make sure I tuck it into that texture until it's appropriate to start crescendoing again. Then you're going to notice my left hand really leads the melodic line through until the very last part of that phrase, getting to this first strong quarter note, my right hand will take over again. So under tempo, you can hear from the forte piano, there's a shift in the balance like this. Again, under tempo, forte piano, left hand has the melodic line, and then finally when I get to the top part of the melody, my right hand drives it. Whole thing in context. Which now leads us to the big 3 strong quarter notes. Now for me to figure out my roll speed, I started with a quantifiable note value, and those were 30 seconds. And that sounded like this at first. Sounded a little harsh, a little mechanical, so I did 2 things. I took all the non-accented notes and I brought them quite a bit stronger, and then I also took my hand speed and I stylized them by really slowing them down and stretching them quite a bit, which helped the body of the roll really sustain itself like this. So when I'm finally up to tempo, those quarter notes almost touch each other now, with just a little bit of separation. And that leads us perfectly into point 3, where we continue this motive.